Listen, retraining your brain is very difficult. Whether it's learning something new on an instrument or getting used to Forever 21's holiday hours, it can be hard to unlearn something or relearn something in a different way. Now, I kind of take issue with how a lot of beginning guitar is taught when it comes to kind of chords and separating that from scales and stuff. And I want to just maybe take a few minutes to go over what I think is a really superior way to start out teaching stuff, or to even kind of relearn some stuff that you already know, all right? So most of the time, whenever you look at a book, or even if you look at a lot of lessons, and I'm guilty of this too, is when you're first starting to teach a student, or maybe you're first starting to learn if you are a student, you want to start learning chords to play songs, which makes sense, right? So it's like, okay, C major is like a chord that you'll hear a lot, G major is a chord, then you get to F, and you really try to like force it, and it's kind of difficult, right? So we take this for granted all the time, but just playing a C major chord and getting like actual good tone and not buzziness out of it is incredibly difficult when you're first starting out. Might still be difficult for you having to get your pointer finger on the first fret of the B string, middle finger, second fret of the D string, ring finger, third fret of the A string. And then to have to switch that to something totally different like a G major chord or a F major chord. I think one of the best ways to do this is to simplify and to really just focus on the top three strings, the highest three strings, the G, B, and E string. By the way, I'm rocking out the D'angelico Deluxe SS today, the official guitar of the Emeryld Ryders. Album coming out soon, check that out. But basically, we're going to talk about rooting chords on each of the top three strings and then moving them around through a chord scale, and what I think is super easy. It's going to have a lot of benefits if you can't do this already, all right? So, in all my years of teaching, I have never seen anyone ever teach someone to play a C major chord like this. Okay? So, it's the third fret of the high E string, pinky, 5th fret on the B string, ring finger, 5th fret on the G string. Now, this is part of a bigger C major raised bar chord or something like that, but I've never ever seen anyone take the top three strings and just do that. This is how I've been teaching my new beginner students, and again, I think it is really resonating with students a lot more, seeing movable shapes right off the bat. Again, C major's great, but you can't move this and have it sound good. And it really kind of creates this roadblock in students' minds, like, okay, this is a C major chord. This is the only one I can play, which is why a lot of people stop and they don't know how to play anything past like the top 5 frets, and they never get down here, whether it's if they have guitar solo ambitions or anything like that. But if we learn a C major chord like this, where the root note is the G string C, the B string is an E, the major third, and the high E string is right there, 3rd fret G, it's 5th. We can move this. This is C, C sharp major, D major, so on and so forth, right? So getting into movable shapes right off the bat is something that's really valuable, and then doing it in more of a musical context. Because again, you want to start learning songs as soon as you can, right? There's a lot of different schools of thought on that. I'm definitely like a song-based teacher when it comes to just kind of like finding a song or an artist or a band that you're passionate about and trying to do something in the vein that they do it. Once you have this down, we can just go 2 frets higher and then change it a little bit to make a minor chord, okay? So again, this is C major, the first of 7 chords in the key of C. We can go 2 frets higher and then take your pinky off and put your middle finger right here. And you get the 2 chord in that key, which is a D minor. Again, this version of a minor chord isn't something that you see a lot. You'll see this bar chord version all the time, but again, when you're starting out, bar chords are like next to impossible. That's why so many people quit by the time they get to like B minor or F major. They're like, I've had enough, I'm done. Or they'll try to avoid songs. I've seen this so many times. They'll try to avoid songs once they see a chord that they're not comfortable with. You can play any chord in the key with these 2 shapes right off the bat, and they're not that difficult to do, right? And the great thing about this is they're built from the root up, which is going to have huge implications farther down the road, all right? So, C major to D minor, a whole step up is E minor. Again, the 9th fret of the G string is an E note, so this is the root, minor third, 5th. The 4 chord is going to be F major. Now I've got 10, 10, and 8. The 5 chord, G major, is that same chord, but now we're seeing it in a different way. A step higher than that is E minor. Then we're going to go to the crazy, wild, diminished chord, right? So before we get back to C major, we're going to do this one diminished chord that everybody always skips, B diminished, right? I've got my ring finger on the 16th fret of the G string. My middle finger is now grabbing what is a minor third with the 15th fret of the B string, and then the 11th fret is that F note, and then I end back where I started, okay? So this is all the chords in the key C. C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, E minor, then we have B diminished, back to C, okay? So now once we get higher and higher, they might not become, super playable if you don't have a cutaway guitar, but I think thinking in movable shapes right off the bat is exceptionally important, because not only is it going to be easier to really transpose, think of different keys, learn a bunch of chords. You learn one shape, and you learn 12 chords, right? Because there's 12 different notes. But also, once you want to get into lead playing, you can kind of see these stacked on top of each other, right? So for instance, we're going to get to these on the other root notes too, but from here to here, if we think of the notes I'm playing, 5, 5, 3, and then 7, 6, 5, like that, I can start thinking about, okay, well, these two notes right here are one part of the shape, and then that goes to here. And then really the bottom of one shape is the top of another shape, which really gets you into playing like modes or pentatonic scales or just lead things where you can kind of lead into different things, okay? So again, that's all just building it from the root up. I think it's really valuable to learn different chord voicings rooted on different strings because you never know how it's going to come in handy, all right? So for the next one, let's do it where the root note is on the B string. Okay, we're going to use the key of D major for our example here, all right? This is probably one of the other chords you know. Great one. Middle finger, 2E, ring finger, 3B, pointer finger, 2 on the G string, right? Now when you play the bottom 4 strings with the open D first, this becomes a D major where the root is lowest, okay? But we're thinking of just the top 3 strings. And also too, beginner tip, if you're trying to play some of these in movable form, but you're hitting like the open strings, you can just take a guitar pick or really just anything to kind of stick between the strings and then get those muted. So then if you accidentally hit them, they're not going to ring out, right? So aside from that, our root note we're thinking of is being on the B string, okay? So this is just one of like really the 2 chord shapes we need to know. Now the next shape we're going to do, a step higher, we don't even have to think about, okay, well, what's the second chord in the key of D minor, or D major, is E minor. We can just think of the 2 chords as being minor, and then this being our shape. Now, you might know this is a D minor shape, right? But this is just going to be a minor shape, where the root note is wherever your ring finger or pointer finger is, depending on how you want to play this. I'm playing it 3rd fret on the high E string, pinky 5th fret on the B string, middle finger 4th fret on the G string. Okay, so 1 chord, 2 chord, 3 chord, 4 chord. Okay, here we go. This is that same shape, but now it's higher. Also, this is another way to really think about intervals and get students to think about intervals faster than they would normally, or having to think of them separately. Because again, interval is just a space between 2 things. A lot of times we'll learn it maybe like, oh, the major scale is interval. You have like an open note, you have a whole step, a whole step, a half step, a whole step, a whole step, a whole step, and a half step. That's all well and good. That's more of an exercise. Doing it as chords, whole step, half step, whole step, on and on, is a more musical way to do this, to play the chords, and then see the spacing between them in that way, right? So again, we have D major, E minor, right there, F sharp minor, G major, A major, B minor. Now again, before we get back to D, we have that diminished one that we don't see too often, right? It's going to be this. 12, 14, 12. And then we're going to end up back home just like that. Now the next one is actually going to be the easiest one. I didn't want to start with this one though because the root note isn't first, okay? So if you go by the first string, as many people like to call it, the high E string, I think of this as the bottom string, whatever. This is going to be the easiest way to kind of play all these chords. We're going to do this one in the key of G major. Our root note is going to be on the high E string, okay? So again, instead of playing this as bar chords like G, A, B, C, D, we're doing the exact same thing of whatever this chord is, but we're just focusing on the top right there, okay? So here's G major, 3, 3, and 4. top up. Okay, this is the 1 chord. The 2 chord being minor. So easy. You just pop one finger across all 3 strings on the 5th fret for A minor, and then B minor, like that. So, first chord, whole step. And again, when I say whole step, I'm talking about the space between the high E string notes. So, whole, half, whole, half. All right, so again, we're going to go through all this again. G major, 3, 3, 4. To A minor is just the 5th fret. B minor is just the 7th fret. C major, we're going to go 8, 8, 9. Again. D major is going to be the exact same shape, 2 frets higher. E minor is the 12th fret. That 7 chord is going to be right here. 14, 13, 14. You may actually know this as being a D dominant 7 shape, which again is just more proof that it's helpful to think about this because really the F sharp diminished triad, wherever that is part of a D7 chord, and then we end up back to here. Okay, so I think this is actually the easiest one. And again, really, let's take that those first 3 chord positions we did and talk about how you can use this in like lead playing, because the bottom of one shape is the top of another, just like how we link scales together. If we take the 2 and 3 chord, A minor and B minor, anytime you're in this key, you can find a root note, go a step higher, and then we have this really cool kind of symmetrical little lead thing that you can do, or even here. And that's just by combining these shapes. And again, all this stuff repeats, so you can really use this anywhere, right? So we're going to do one more because we're going to start getting into the middle strings. Rooted on the D string. We're going to the key of F now. And we're going to root from the 3rd fret of the D string, 2nd fret of the G string, pointer finger 1st fret on the B string. Okay, so now we're just kind of getting into the fretboard, but still thinking of just 3 notes at a time. All right, 1 chord. Here's the 2 chord. Again, indicative of a bar chord that you could get into later, but you don't have to. The 2 chord of the key of F is G minor, 5th fret on the D string, 3rd fret on the G and B string. Move that another whole step. Remember, whole, half. That 4 chord is major, so it's the same shape. Another whole step from there is the 5 chord in F. Another whole step from there is the minor chord. And then from here, we have our E diminished back to F. Okay, so let's kind of recap the whole thing. We've got 4 different sets of chords that are going to allow us to play in any key. All of these are much easier than trying to jam your hand into different positions when you're first starting out. And they have ancillary benefits, just as far as like maybe playing lead and seeing the intervals in a different way instead of just moving through open chord shapes that don't really relate to each other in a movable set. Okay? Starting off, let's start with the key of G1 first, right? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 1. Again, it's just an octave apart, same chord, an octave higher. Then we'll go to rooting on the B string in the key of D. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, back to 1. Okay, then we can go to where we started with in the key of C. When this is our major shape. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, home. And then finally in the key of F. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 1. Okay? So, I've been teaching this to students and I see them progress in ways that are faster than maybe trying to jam their hands into open chords. Not saying that's like a really bad or wrong way to do it. I just think for certain students, they're going to respond better to different things. Some people are really motivated by the challenge of like learning bar chords right away, and they kind of put that extra work in right away. Other people, that's really a hurdle that they have a hard time getting over. So really, there's no one right or wrong way to teach an instrument or teach any of this, but I think this is something that could be utilized and really helpful to a certain, like a huge number of people that really only have kind of traditional methods in place to help them out. So definitely thanks for sticking with it this long if you've lasted the whole video. Make sure you check the links below because I've got master classes that go really in depth on all this kind of stuff in different ways that might be helpful to you. And remember, Emeryld Ryders coming soon, December 6th, 2019. Check that out too. And if you have any questions or comments, hit me up in the comment section, Instagram, Twitter, or the website. I'll talk to you all soon. Thanks.